Lily burst through the front doors of Crestview Hospital, her small frame trembling with urgency. Her heart raced in her chest, each beat echoing the panic that consumed her. The fluorescent lights of the lobby flickered overhead, casting an unsettling glow on the sterile environment. She was a frail 7-year-old, her wide, tear-filled eyes darting around the room, searching for help. Clutched tightly against her chest was a dark blue blanket, slightly tattered at the edges, but lovingly wrapped around her baby brother Sam. The faint sound of his cries pierced the air, a desperate call that tugged at the heartstrings of anyone who heard it. "Help, please!" Lily gasped, her breath coming in short, ragged gasps as she stumbled forward. Her tangled hair fell across her face, obscuring her small features, but it did little to hide the fear etched deep within her. She approached the reception desk, where a nurse noticed the commotion and rushed to her side, concern etched on her face. "Sweetheart, what's wrong? What happened?" the nurse asked, kneeling down to meet Lily's terrified gaze. "My brother, he's sick," Lily stammered, her voice trembling with anxiety as she clutched the blanket even tighter, as if her grip could somehow protect Sam from whatever was happening to him. "Let's take a look at him," the nurse said, her tone soothing but urgent. She gestured for another nurse to assist, and they moved quickly, knowing the importance of the moment. As they carefully unwrapped the blanket, revealing the tiny face of baby Sam, Lily's heart sank. He was pale, his skin a sickly shade that sent a chill through her. The nurses exchanged worried glances, and before Lily could comprehend the gravity of the situation, Dr. Michael Hartman appeared. He was a seasoned physician, known for his cool demeanor and sharp intellect. But today, something about the urgency in the air caught his attention. "What do we have here?" Dr. Hartman asked, kneeling beside Lily, his voice steady as he assessed the situation. "Dr. Hartman," one of the nurses replied, "this little girl just brought her brother in. He seems to be dehydrated and in distress." Lily looked up at Dr. Hartman, her eyes wide with fear. "Please, he needs help. He's been sick for days," she pleaded, her voice barely a whisper, yet filled with desperation. Dr. Hartman's gaze softened as he studied the girl before him. There was a fragility about her, a vulnerability that tugged at his heart. "We're going to do everything we can for Sam," he assured her, though he could sense that there was more to their story. "Can you tell me what happened?" Lily hesitated, her small frame trembling as she looked down at the ground. The memory of the last few days flooded her mind, her brother's cries echoing in the darkness, the empty fridge, and the fear that seemed to linger in every corner of their home. She bit her lip, afraid to share too much. I don't know. He just got sick. I tried to take care of him." She finally managed, her voice breaking. Dr. Hartman nodded, sensing the weight of her words. "Okay, let's get him stabilized first," he said, turning to the nurses. "Take him to the pediatric ward. We need to start in 4 and run some tests." As the medical team whisked Sam away, Lily felt a part of her being pulled with him. She wanted to scream, to run after them, but she was rooted to the spot, fear gripping her heart. "Wait, I need to be with him," she cried, her voice rising in panic. Dr. Hartman knelt beside her again, his expression firm yet compassionate. "I know this is hard, but you have to trust us. We'll take good care of him," he said gently. "Can you tell me your name?" "Lily," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Lily, we're going to do everything we can," Dr. Hartman reassured her, but as he spoke, he noticed the bruises on her arms, the dirt smudged across her face. There was something deeper at play here, a story that needed to be uncovered. "Where are your parents, Lily?" he asked, trying to maintain a calm demeanor despite the growing unease in his gut. They're not here," she replied, her voice barely audible as she looked down, avoiding his gaze. Dr. Hartman felt a pang of concern. The child was alone, and whatever circumstances had brought her to this moment were likely far more troubling than he had initially assessed. "Okay, let's focus on Sam for now," he said, standing up. "I'll be right back. I want you to wait here with the nurses." As he walked away, Lily felt a mix of helplessness and fear. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand, trying to steady her breathing. All she could think about was Sam, his tiny fingers, the way he looked up at her with trust, and the sound of his cries that had echoed in her ears for days. Alone in a world that felt so big and frightening, She clutched her blanket tighter, wishing she could somehow shield him from whatever darkness loomed over them. In the bustling emergency room, chaos reigned, but Dr. Hartman's mind was focused entirely on two little souls, Lily and Sam. He moved swiftly through the hallways, his heart heavy with the weight of the unknown. The cries of children and the beeping of machines blurred together, but he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a much larger story. He arrived at the pediatric ward, where nurses were already working on Sam. The little boy lay on the bed, fragile and vulnerable, surrounded by machines that beeped rhythmically. Dr. Hartman took a moment to assess the situation, noting the signs of dehydration and malnutrition that were evident in the baby's sunken cheeks and dry lips. "Start in 4 and get a full workup," he instructed, his voice steady despite the turmoil brewing inside him. The nurses moved quickly, and as they worked, he felt a knot tightening in his stomach. He knew that the road ahead would be challenging, not just for Sam, but for Lily as well. He wondered about their home life, the circumstances that had led them to this moment. As he continued to monitor Sam's vitals, he couldn't shake the image of Lily's bruised arms from his mind. The girl was clearly in distress, and it was evident that something was terribly wrong. He made a mental note to speak with the social worker once Sam was stabilized. They needed to ensure that Lily was safe and that they understood the full scope of their situation. Returning to the waiting area, he found Lily sitting on a chair, her small form hunched over, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The nurses kept glancing at her, exchanging worried looks. Dr. Hartman approached her again, kneeling down to her level. "Hey, Lily, how are you holding up?" he asked softly. Lily looked up at him, her eyes filled with an ocean of emotion. Fear, sorrow, and a flicker of hope. "Is Sam okay?" she asked, her voice quivering. "We're doing everything we can to help him," Dr. Hartman reassured her. "But I need you to tell me the truth about what's been happening. Can you do that for me?" For a moment, Lily hesitated, the weight of her words hanging in the air. She glanced around, as if seeking an escape route, before finally nodding slowly. I just wanted to take care of him," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Dr. Hartman felt his heart ache for her. "I understand, Lily. You've been very brave," he said gently. "But it's important that we know everything so we can help you both." Lily looked down at her hands, her small fingers trembling. It's hard," she admitted, her voice breaking. "I didn't want anyone to take him away." Dr. Hartman reached out, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "I promise, we're not here to take him away from you. We want to make sure he's safe and healthy. That's all." As he spoke, Lily's tear-filled eyes met his, and in that moment, he felt a profound connection with her, a bond forged in shared pain and desperation. "Please, you have to help him," she pleaded, her voice trembling as she looked up at him with such raw vulnerability that it made his heart ache. "I will do everything in my power to help Sam," he vowed, his heart heavy with the gravity of her words. But as he watched her, he knew that the fight was not just for Sam's health, but for the safety of both of them. The journey ahead would be anything but easy, and he could only hope that he could uncover the truth before it was too late. Dr. Michael Hartman stood by the window of the pediatric ward, the soft hum of fluorescent lights providing a sterile backdrop to the chaotic thoughts swirling in his mind. Outside, the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the parking lot, a stark contrast to the bright, clinical interior of Crestview Hospital. He had just finished examining Sam, whose frail body lay limply on the hospital bed, covered by a thin blanket. Even now, the baby's small frame seemed too weak to fight the infections that had taken hold of him. The doctor couldn't shake the feeling of dread that accompanied the realization of how serious the boy's condition was. Turning away from the window, he approached Lily, who sat on a plastic chair in the waiting area. She clutched her tattered stuffed animal, a small, worn rabbit with one ear flopped down, its button eyes reflecting the flickering overhead lights. The sight of her, so small and vulnerable, tugged at his heartstrings. He knelt down to her level, trying to meet her gaze, but she seemed lost in a world of her own, her fingers nervously tracing the seams of the toy. "Lily," he began gently, catching her attention. "Can we talk for a moment?" She looked up, her big, round eyes filled with a mix of fear and defiance. Are you going to help Sam? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper, but laced with determination. I'm doing everything I can to help him, Dr. Hartman assured her, hoping to provide some comfort. But I need to understand what happened at home. Can you tell me about it? Lily hesitated, her gaze shifting away, focusing instead on the ground. It's just my mom. She gets sick sometimes. Sam and me, we try to take care of each other. Lily, he pressed gently, I need to know exactly what you mean by sick. Was she hurting you or Sam? Her eyes widened in a mix of shock and fear at the question. No, she wouldn't hurt us. She loves us. Sometimes she forgets to take care of us. Dr. Hartman felt a pang of sadness as he looked at the little girl, her innocence clashing with the harsh realities of her life. What do you mean by forgetting, Lily? Can you tell me more? She opened her mouth to speak, but quickly closed it again, biting her lip. After a moment of silence, she finally whispered, some days she sleeps a lot, and when she wakes up, she's not really there. She just sits in one place and doesn't talk. Sam gets hungry, and I try to feed him, but there's not much food. Dr. Hartman's heart sank further. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together, but they painted a grim picture. He could see the fear in Lily's eyes, a protective instinct that made her wary of revealing too much. Lily, you don't have to be scared. I'm here to help you and Sam, but I need to know everything so I can make sure you're both safe. I promise I'll take care of him, she insisted, her voice gaining strength. I don't need anyone else, just me and Sam. Sometimes it's okay to ask for help, he said softly. There are people who want to protect you both, but I need to understand what's going on at home. Lily's gaze dropped to her rabbit, and she clutched it tightly, as if it were her only anchor in the storm of her life. I don't want to talk about it. Please, just help Sam. With a heavy heart, Dr. Hartman nodded. All right, Lily. I'll do my best. Just know that I'm here for you. He stood up, feeling the weight of her despair, and walked back to the nurse's station to consult with social workers. He knew that he needed to act quickly. Time was of the essence for both children. As he spoke with the social workers, Lily remained in the waiting area, her small frame dwarfed by the oversized chair. The bustle of the hospital around her felt overwhelming, and she instinctively wrapped her arms around the stuffed animal, seeking comfort. The fluorescent lights buzzed above, and she wished for the comforting darkness of her trailer, where she could hide from the world's harshness. Lily, a voice interrupted her thoughts. She looked up to see a kind nurse named Sarah approaching, her gentle smile a beacon of warmth in the sterile environment. Hi, Lily replied, her voice barely a whisper. Do you want to talk? Sarah asked, settling into the chair beside her. I can sit with you for a bit if you'd like. Lily nodded but remained silent, her thoughts swirling like a storm. Sarah, sensing her hesitation, began to share stories of her own childhood, trying to coax Lily out of her shell. You know, when I was your age, I had a favorite stuffed animal too. His name was Mr. Fluff. I took him everywhere. Lily's eyes flickered with interest. Really? What did he look like? He was a big, fluffy bear, and I loved him so much that I took him to school, to the park, even to the grocery store. Sarah laughed softly, hoping to lighten the atmosphere. He had a little patch on his belly from all the hugs I gave him. Lily smiled faintly, the image of a fluffy bear bringing her a momentary escape from her worries. I like my bunny. His name is Hopper, she said, a small spark of pride in her voice. Hopper is a great name. He looks like he's been through a lot of adventures with you, Sarah replied, glancing at the worn toy. You're very brave, Lily. At that moment, a wave of doubt washed over Lily. What if they take me and Sam away? I don't want to be separated from him. Sarah's expression softened, and she leaned closer, lowering her voice. I can't promise everything will be okay, but I want you to know that there are people who care about you and Sam. Sometimes, asking for help is the bravest thing you can do. The words lingered in the air, and Lily felt a flicker of hope amidst her fear. I just want to keep him safe, she admitted, her voice breaking slightly. I know, Sarah said gently, and we'll do everything we can to help you both. You're not alone in this. Meanwhile, Dr. Hartman conferred with the social workers, his brow furrowed in concentration. They discussed the alarming signs of neglect and the need for immediate intervention, weighing the options available to protect Lily and Sam. As the conversation deepened, his thoughts drifted back to the little girl, her bravery shining through the cracks of her broken world. Just then, a nurse approached, her expression serious. "We got to keep a close eye on Sam. He's stable for now, but we need to ensure he's monitored closely. His condition is still precarious." Dr. Hartman nodded, the weight of responsibility heavy on his shoulders. "I need to make sure Lily understands what's happening. She's scared, and I want her to feel safe here." As he stepped back into the waiting area, he found Lily still sitting with Sarah, a faint smile playing on her lips as they exchanged stories. The sight brought a flicker of warmth to his heart, but he knew they had to face the storm looming ahead. "Lily," he called softly, kneeling beside her once more. "Can we talk again for a minute?" She turned to him, her expression a mix of hope and apprehension. "Is Sam okay?" "For now, yes," he replied, "but I need you to help me help him. Can you do that?" With a deep breath, Lily nodded, the determination returning to her eyes. "I'll try." "Thank you," Dr. Hartman said, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. "You're stronger than you know, Lily. Together, we'll make sure you and Sam are safe." As he spoke, a shadow passed over Lily's face, and Dr. Hartman sensed the deep-rooted fear that was beginning to take root in her heart. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" he asked gently. "I don't want to go back home," she confessed, her voice trembling. "What if Mom gets mad at me for telling?" Dr. Hartman reached out, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You're not in trouble, Lily. You did the right thing by coming here. We'll figure it out together, okay?" As she looked up at him, her eyes shimmered with unshed tears, a mixture of relief and fear enveloping her. In that moment, Dr. Hartman realized that their journey had just begun, a road filled with uncertainty, but also with the possibility of hope. Dr. Hartman stood in the fluorescent-lit emergency room, his heart pounding as he glanced at the monitors surrounding Sam. The small boy was barely clinging to life, his fragile body racked with the effects of severe dehydration and malnutrition. Each beep from the machine seemed to echo the urgency of the moment. The medical staff worked swiftly, their movements a blur of professionalism and dedication. But for Dr. Hartman, time felt agonizingly slow. "Get me a central line and start a saline drip," he ordered, his voice steady but urgent. He could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on him like a heavy cloak. This was not just another case. This was a child, Lily's brother. Meanwhile, in the waiting area, Lily paced back and forth, her small hands twisting the fabric of her shirt. She had been forbidden from entering the recovery room, and the anxiety gnawed at her insides. The sound of Sam's cries still echoed in her mind, and she could not shake the feeling that she needed to be with him. "Is he going to be okay?" she asked a passing nurse, her voice barely above a whisper, but the nurse simply smiled sympathetically and kept walking. "Ma'am, you can't go in there," a security guard said gently but firmly as he positioned himself in front of the recovery room door. Lily looked up at him, her large, tear-filled eyes pleading. I need to see him. Please," she begged, her voice choking on the lump in her throat. The guard softened but remained resolute. "I understand it's hard, but they're doing their best for him. You'll know as soon as he's stable." Lily nodded, her heart heavy. As she turned away, she spotted a kind nurse named Sarah approaching her with a warm smile. "Hey there, Lily. Why don't we find you a seat?" Sarah suggested, her tone soothing. She led Lily to a corner of the waiting area, where a small table with colorful stickers and crayon Saturday. "How about some coloring while we wait?" Lily hesitated but eventually took a seat, her fingers nervously tracing the edges of the paper. "Will you tell me about my brother? Is he okay?" Sarah knelt beside her, keeping her voice calm. "Sam is getting a lot of help right now. The doctors are working very hard to make sure he's okay. But I'd like to hear more about you and Sam. Can you tell me what happened?" Lily's gaze dropped to the table, her fingers fiddling with a crayon. I don't want to talk about it. It's not good." "That's okay," Sarah reassured her. "You can share as much or as little as you want. But I promise I'm here to listen if you need someone to talk to." Lily looked into Sarah's gentle eyes and felt a flicker of trust. "Mommy, she hasn't been okay for a long time. Sometimes she just sleeps, and Sam and I have to take care of ourselves." Sarah's heart sank, but she maintained her composed demeanor. "I'm really sorry to hear that, Lily. It sounds like you've been very brave." It's hard," Lily confessed, her voice trembling. "We don't have food sometimes. I try to find things for us to eat, but it's not always enough. I don't want Sam to be hungry." The nurse listened intently as Lily spoke, her heart breaking for the small girl. "You did a great job bringing Sam here. You're really strong. You know that?" Lily nodded, but didn't meet Sarah's gaze. "I just wanted him to be okay. I don't want anything bad to happen to him." Just then, Dr. Hartman emerged from the recovery room, his expression serious but softened by the concern in his eyes. He spotted Lily and approached her, crouching down to her level. "Hi, Lily. Can I talk to you for a moment?" Lily's heart raced as she looked up at him, searching for any hint of reassurance in his demeanor. "Is Sam okay?" she asked, her voice quivering. Dr. Hartman took a deep breath and gently nodded. "He's stable for now, but he needs a lot of care. We're doing everything we can to help him. Will he be okay?" she pressed, desperation clawing at her voice. "We're doing our best," he replied, his voice steady yet filled with an urgency that made Lily's stomach twist. "But Lily, I need to ask you some questions. Can you tell me more about what's been happening at home?" Lily's eyes darted to the floor, and she clenched her stuffed animal tightly. I don't want to get in trouble," she whispered. Dr. Hartman leaned in closer, lowering his voice. "Lily, this isn't about getting in trouble. I want to help you and Sam. Can you trust me?" After a long, anxious pause, Lily nodded slightly, her resolve crumbling under the weight of her fear and the kindness offered to her. "Sometimes Mommy doesn't come home. She goes out, and it's just me and Sam. I try to keep him safe. Does she take care of you both when she's home?" Dr. Hartman asked gently. Lily shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. "No. Sometimes she forgets to feed us. Sometimes she yells." Dr. Hartman's heart ached at her words. He had seen too many children in situations like this, but hearing it from Lily made it all the more real. "And what about when she's out? Are you and Sam alone?" "Yeah, a lot. But I try to keep him quiet. I don't want anyone to hear us," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. Dr. Hartman felt a surge of anger and sadness. "Lily, you don't have to be afraid anymore. There are people who can help you and Sam, but I need you to be honest with me. Can you do that?" Lily nodded, her small frame shaking. "I'll try." "Good," he said softly. "You're doing great. Remember, I'm here for you." As Dr. Hartman stood up, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a complex web of emotions and truths that needed to be unraveled. He needed to protect Lily and Sam, but he also needed to ensure that they could find a safe path forward. "Can I see him now?" Lily asked, her eyes wide with hope. "Not just yet," he replied gently. "But I promise as soon as I can, you'll be the first to know." Lily's heart sank a little at the response, but she understood. All she wanted was to feel that her brother was close, safe. As she sat down again, Sarah resumed her place beside her, offering a comforting presence. "Lily, you're so brave," Sarah said, squeezing her hand. "You're doing everything right." But as Dr. Hartman walked away, he felt the gnawing sensation in his gut intensify. Something was wrong, deeply wrong. He glanced back at Lily, who was now staring at the floor, her small shoulders trembling. He knew he had to dig deeper into their story, to uncover the truth behind the bruises on Lily's arms, the fear in her eyes, and the heartbreaking reality of their situation. The stakes were rising, and time was of the essence. The last thing he wanted was for this little girl to lose hope, especially when hope was all they had left. Dr. Michael Hartman stepped out of his car, the gravel crunching beneath his shoes as he approached the dilapidated trailer that had been the home of Lily and her baby brother Sam. The sun hung low in the sky, casting elongated shadows that danced across the ground, mirroring the heavy weight of despair that hung in the air. Accompanying him were two social workers, Maria and Greg, their expressions a mix of professionalism and sympathy. They exchanged glances, each aware that they were about to confront a harsh reality. As they walked up the rickety stairs leading to the front door, Dr. Hartman felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He had seen many things during his years in the emergency room, but the thought of what might lie behind that door filled him with a sense of dread. He knocked firmly, the sound reverberating through the stillness of the afternoon. After a moment, the door creaked open, revealing a darkened interior that reeked of neglect. "Hello," Dr. Hartman called out, stepping inside cautiously. The room was dimly lit, with curtains hanging askew, dust motes swirling in the faint light. The smell of stale food lingered in the air, and he could see remnants of unwashed dishes piling up in the corner. The worn-out furniture was covered in a layer of dust, creating an eerie stillness that contrasted sharply with the life of two young children who resided here. Maria and Greg followed close behind, their expressions darkening as they took in the scene. "This is worse than we anticipated," Maria whispered, shaking her head. Dr. Hartman nodded, feeling a surge of protectiveness for Lily and Sam. "We need to find Lily's mother and assess the situation immediately," he said firmly. As they moved through the cramped living space, they stumbled upon a small bedroom. The door was slightly ajar, and Dr. Hartman peeked inside. It was a small room, barely big enough for a twin bed that was covered in a faded blanket. A few scattered toys lay on the floor, remnants of a childhood that seemed to have been overshadowed by the chaos of their home life. His heart ached at the sight. "Dr. Hartman," Greg called, pulling him out of his thoughts. "Look at this." He pointed to a series of photographs pinned to the wall. They were snapshots of happy moments, but they were marred by the blurred faces of adults who appeared to be intoxicated or in distress. In one photo, Lily and her mother were smiling, but the joy in their eyes seemed forced, a facade hiding the darkness that lurked beneath. "This is where they live?" Dr. Hartman murmured, his voice tinged with disbelief. "It's not uncommon in situations like this," Maria replied softly. "But we need to document everything. This is critical for the case." As they continued their search, the sound of a faint whimper reached Dr. Hartman's ears. He turned to the others, eyes wide. "Did you hear that?" They all paused, listening intently. The whimper grew louder, almost a soft cry echoing from the back of the trailer. Without a second thought, Dr. Hartman hurried toward the sound, pushing open a door that led to a small bathroom. It was there that he found a small creature huddled in the corner, a scruffy dog that looked as if it hadn't eaten in days. "Oh, God," he whispered, kneeling down to the animal's level. "You poor thing." The dog looked up at him with big, pleading eyes, its ribs visible beneath matted fur. "What do we do?" Greg asked, concern etched across his face. "I can't leave it here," Dr. Hartman said, his voice resolute. "We need to get it out. It's as much a victim as the kids." They carefully coaxed the dog out of its corner, using the last of a granola bar that Dr. Hartman had in his pocket. As the dog cautiously approached, he felt a pang in his chest, realizing that this was just another piece of the puzzle, another being trapped in a cycle of neglect. After securing the dog, they made their way back outside, the sunlight feeling almost blinding after the darkness of the trailer. Dr. Hartman took a deep breath, trying to dispel the heaviness that had settled in his heart. He knew he had to act quickly, both for Lily and Sam, and for the innocent dog they had rescued. Back at the hospital, Dr. Hartman stood in Sam's room, where the baby was resting peacefully. He checked the 4-line and the monitors, relieved to see that Sam's condition was stabilizing. Yet, the shadow of Lily's home life loomed over him, weighing heavily on his conscience. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. "Michael," Nurse Sarah's voice broke through his thoughts as she stepped into the room. Her expression was one of concern mixed with admiration. "You did a good thing today." "Did I?" he replied, looking down at Sam's tiny face. "It feels like a drop in the ocean. We need to do more." "Caring for him is a start," she said gently. "But you know it's not just about Sam. Lily needs help too." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I know, and I'm determined to make sure she gets it. But I need a plan." As he began to formulate thoughts in his mind, Lily entered the room, her eyes wide with wonder and a hint of fear. She clutched her stuffed animal tightly, her fingers digging into the fabric as if it were a lifeline. "Is Sam okay?" she asked, her small voice trembling. Dr. Hartman knelt down to her level, ensuring he had her full attention. "He's doing much better, Lily. The doctors are taking great care of him." "Can I see him?" she implored, her eyes glistening with hope. "Of course," he replied, gesturing for her to come closer. "But first, I want you to tell me more about your home." Can you do that for me?" Lily hesitated, biting her lip. It's not safe there," she finally admitted, looking down at her stuffed animal. "Sometimes Mommy doesn't come home, and we get scared." Dr. Hartman's heart sank. "And what about your baby brother? How is he treated at home?" Lily's eyes filled with tears, and she shook her head. "He cries a lot, and I try to make him happy, but I don't always know how. Mommy says I'm supposed to take care of him, but it's hard." "I know it is, sweetie," he said softly, kneeling closer. "And you've done a brave job. But you have to promise me that you'll always be honest about what happens at home. It's really important for me to help you both." Lily nodded, wiping her tears away with the back of her hand. "Okay, I promise." As they spoke, Dr. Hartman felt a surge of determination. He would not let them fall through the cracks. He would fight for them, for their safety and their future. After a few moments, he stood up and looked out the window, the weight of the world pressing down on him. He was aware that Lily was still standing there, watching him with those big, trusting eyes. "Do you want to rest now?" he asked gently, trying to shift the mood. "I can show you to a room where you can relax. I want you to feel safe." Lily nodded, the tension in her small frame easing slightly. "Will Sam be okay while I'm gone?" "He will," Dr. Hartman assured her. "I'll keep an eye on him. You just focus on resting." As they left the room, the phone rang, slicing through the fragile moment. Dr. Hartman's heart skipped a beat. He could feel the impending storm approaching, the kind that could change everything for Lily and Sam. He glanced back at Lily, who was now gazing out at the bustling hospital corridor, her innocence still intact despite the darkness that surrounded her. As he answered the phone, he knew that whatever news awaited him could alter their lives forever. Dr. Michael Hartman glanced at the hospital's clock as he answered the phone, a sense of urgency punctuating the air around him. The voice on the other end was grave, and he could hear the faint rustle of papers as the caller spoke. "Dr. Hartman, we've just received an update on Lily and Sam's mother. She's been arrested for drug possession. She was found near a known trafficking area." The doctor's heart sank. He had feared this news, but hearing it confirmed made it all the more real. "What does this mean for the children?" he asked, his voice steady but laced with concern. "Given the circumstances, we can expedite the process for custody arrangements. However, we need to ensure that both children are safe and that any potential risk from the mother is taken into account," the voice explained, managing to convey both urgency and a hint of bureaucratic indifference. Dr. Hartman nodded, even though the caller couldn't see him. "I need to meet with social services immediately. We can't let them go back to her. Not now. They need protection, and we have to act fast." After hanging up, he felt a wave of determination wash over him. He had seen enough in his years as a doctor to understand that family bonds, though powerful, could also become weapons of destruction. Lily and Sam deserved better, and he was going to fight for them. He quickly made his way to the meeting room where social workers were waiting. As he entered, he found a small group of professionals seated around a table, their expressions a mix of concern and weariness. The lead social worker, Mary, looked up and gestured for him to sit. "Dr. Hartman, thank you for coming so quickly. We've reviewed the reports, and your concerns are valid. The mother poses a significant risk." "I can't stress enough how urgent this is," he interjected, leaning forward. "Lily is so protective of Sam, and given their home life, I fear for their safety if they're sent back to her. They've already suffered so much." Mary nodded, her brow furrowing. "We need to gather all the evidence we can. We'll conduct interviews and collect statements from the hospital staff. But the process can be slow, and the mother has rights. She could fight us." Dr. Hartman felt a surge of frustration. "Rights? What about the rights of the children? They're the ones in danger here. We need to act decisively. We can't wait for her to get out and potentially harm them again." Just then, a soft knock interrupted their discussion. The door opened slightly, and Lily peeked in, her wide eyes filled with confusion and fear. Dr. Hartman felt his heart clench at the sight of her. She was a small figure in oversized hospital pajamas, clinging to her stuffed animal as if it were a lifeline. "Dr. Hartman," she called softly, "is everything okay?" He quickly stood, moving towards her. "Lily, sweetheart, it's okay. We're just having a discussion about you and Sam." Lily's gaze darted between the adults in the room, and she stepped inside, hesitantly. Is Sam okay? Her voice trembled, and it broke Dr. Hartman's heart. He's stable, Lily. Is getting better, he reassured her, kneeling down to meet her eye level. But we need to talk about something important. Can you tell me how you've been feeling? Lily bit her lip, her small hands twisting the fabric of her pajamas. I want to be with Sam. I don't want to go anywhere else. Please don't let them take him away from me. Dr. Hartman exchanged a worried glance with Mary. Lily, listen to me, he said gently. We're trying to keep you and Sam safe. We want to make sure you both have a good home where you can be happy and healthy. But Mama, Lily's voice faltered, and she looked down, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. She said she would come back for us. Your mother is in a difficult situation right now, Lily. We're going to do everything we can to make sure you and Sam are safe, Dr. Hartman said, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on him. But I need you to be honest with me. Is there anything else you're scared of? Lily hesitated, her small frame trembling. I don't want to be alone. I need to take care of Sam. He needs me. I know, Dr. Hartman said softly, feeling a profound connection to the little girl. And we're going to try to keep you together. But we need to understand everything to help you. Can you tell me more about what happened at home? Lily took a deep breath, her voice barely above a whisper. Mama, she gets really sick sometimes. She yells, and I have to take care of Sam. I try to feed him, but there isn't always food. I just want to keep him safe. Dr. Hartman felt a knot tighten in his chest. You've been so brave, Lily. We want to help you both get to a safe place. But what if they take him away? She asked, her voice breaking. They won't, I promise, Dr. Hartman replied, his heart aching for her. I will fight for you and Sam. You're not alone in this, okay? Lily nodded slowly, her expression still clouded with worry. As she stood there, small and fragile, he felt a surge of determination to protect them. He turned back to Mary. We need to move quickly. I want to file for immediate custody and ensure that Lily and Sam are placed in a safe environment. Mary nodded, her expression resolute. We'll prepare the necessary documents and get the ball rolling. We'll do our best to expedite the process. Lily watched the two adults, her small fingers still wrapped tightly around her stuffed animal. Can I stay with Sam? Please. Her voice was barely a whisper, but it resonated deeply in the room. Of course, Lily. We'll make sure you're both together, Dr. Hartman assured her. He felt a pang of sadness mixed with hope. He wanted to provide the love and safety that had been stripped from her life. As they began discussing logistics, Lily's gaze wandered, and she caught the flicker of movement in the hallway. A nurse passed by, and for a moment, her heart raced with panic as she thought about losing Sam again. Without thinking, she turned on her heels and dashed out of the room, driven by a desperate need to see her brother. Lily, where are you going? Dr. Hartman called after her, but his voice was drowned out by her urgency. In her mind, she could only think of Sam and the fear that he would be taken away from her, just like everything else in her life. She dashed through the hallways, her small feet barely making a sound against the polished floor. With every step, her heart pounded louder, drowning out the world around her. She could feel the tears brimming in her eyes as she thought of Sam's tiny frame, alone in a hospital room, needing her by his side. Sam, she called out, her voice echoing in the empty corridor. I'm coming. I'm right here. Her mind raced with thoughts of how much she loved her brother, how she had always been there for him. He needed her now more than ever. She had to find him. She had to keep him safe. Lily's heart raced as she darted through the sterile corridors of Crestview Hospital, her small hands grasping at the fabric of her dress as if it could somehow anchor her to safety. The bright fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting long shadows that danced against the walls, and the sharp smell of antiseptic stung her nose. She called out for her baby brother, Sam, her voice a desperate whisper amidst the buzz of hospital activity. Sam, where are you? Panic clawed at her throat as she rounded a corner and skidded to a halt in front of an empty room. The bed was stripped bare, the medical equipment silent and unoccupied. No, 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 she murmured to herself, biting her lip to stifle the tears threatening to spill over. A nurse rushed past her, barely noticing the small girl standing alone in the hallway. "Excuse me." Lily's voice trembled, but the nurse didn't hear her. She turned and ran the opposite way, her mind racing with possibilities. Where could they have taken him? She had to find Sam. He needed her. As she continued her frantic search, she caught sight of Dr. Hartman at the nurse's station, his brow furrowed in concentration as he spoke with a group of staff members. For a split second, relief washed over her. He would know where Sam was. But before she could call out to him, her small frame was enveloped in fear again. What if he didn't know? What if she lost Sam forever? Just then, she felt a familiar presence behind her. Dr. Hartman had spotted her. "Lily," he called out, rushing toward her. His heart sank as he noticed the tears streaming down her cheeks. "What's wrong?" Lily looked up at him, her eyes wide with fear. "Sam, he's gone. I can't find him." Her voice cracked, and she clutched at the hem of her dress, trembling. Dr. Hartman knelt down to meet her gaze, his expression softening. "It's okay, Lily. We'll find him. I promise." He could feel the weight of urgency pressing down on him. He stood quickly, taking her hand into his. "Come with me." Together, they navigated the maze of the hospital, Lily's small feet barely keeping up with Dr. Hartman's long strides. He called out to the nurses, asking if they had seen Sam or if he had been moved. The air was thick with tension, and Lily could feel it gnawing at her insides. After what felt like an eternity, a nurse approached them, concern etched on her face. "Dr. Hartman, we have a situation. Sam was taken by someone who just arrived. We're trying to track them down now." "Who took him?" Dr. Hartman's voice was sharp, a mix of anger and disbelief. It can't be their mother." Lily's heart dropped. She had overheard fragments of conversations, the hushed discussions about their mother's recent arrest. "Dr. Hartman, please," she begged, her small voice breaking. "We have to get him back." Dr. Hartman's expression hardened with determination. "We will, Lily. I need you to stay close to me. All right?" He squeezed her hand reassuringly and then turned to the nurses. "Alert security and check every exit. We have to find that child." They rushed down the hall, the atmosphere charged with urgency. As they turned a corner, Dr. Hartman spotted a figure slipping through a side door. It was her mother, disheveled and wild-eyed, her hair unkempt, but unmistakably Lily and Sam's mother. "Stop," he shouted, but the woman didn't turn. She hurried away, clutching Sam tightly against her chest. "No!" Lily screamed, pulling away from Dr. Hartman. "Sam!" She bolted after her mother, fear propelling her forward. "Lily, wait!" Dr. Hartman called after her, panic surging through him. He chased after her, his heart racing. Lily's small form darted through the emergency exit, and Dr. Hartman followed, bursting through the door just in time to see her mother slip into a waiting car. "Mom!" Lily cried, her voice cracking as she stumbled onto the pavement. She reached out, but the car sped away, leaving a cloud of dust in its wake. Dr. Hartman caught up to Lily just as she collapsed onto the ground, her tiny body shaking with sobs. "I wanted to save him," she wailed, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I wanted to help him." Dr. Hartman knelt beside her, his own heart breaking at the sight of her despair. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly as she cried. "I know, sweetheart. I know. We were trying to help him, and we still can. I promise you, we won't give up on Sam." Lily pulled back slightly, her eyes searching his. "But what if she takes him away? What if we never see him again? She said she would be better now." Dr. Hartman frowned, recalling the note he had seen earlier tucked into Sam's blanket during one of his examinations. He had brushed it off at the time, assuming it was just a child's drawing or a simple message. But now, understanding its significance, he felt a knot form in his stomach. "Lily," he said gently, "what do you mean by that? What did she say?" Lily wiped her tears with the back of her hand, her voice barely above a whisper. There was a note in Sam's blanket. It said she was better now and that we could come home. Dr. Hartman's heart sank further. He struggled to process the weight of her words. "Lily, I need you to tell me exactly what the note said. Can you do that?" She nodded slowly, her gaze dropping to the ground. She said she missed us and that everything would be okay. I thought maybe we could go back. A heavy silence fell between them as Dr. Hartman contemplated the implications. He knew how addiction could manipulate a person's promises, how the cycle of hope and despair could trap families in a web of love and pain. The note was a plea, a desperate attempt by a mother who believed she could change. But the reality of her actions told a different story. "Lily," he said softly, "I want you to know that it's okay to hope for your mother to get better. But it's also okay to be scared. We have to make sure you and Sam are safe, no matter what." "I don't want to be separated from Sam," Lily whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. Dr. Hartman brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. "I'll do everything in my power to keep you both together. But right now, we have to focus on finding him and making sure he's safe." As they stood there, the weight of the situation pressing down on them, Dr. Hartman felt a sense of helplessness wash over him. He realized that the path ahead was fraught with uncertainty. The door to their fate had swung open, and he could only hope that he would find a way to navigate the tangled web of love, desperation, and family ties that bound them all together. "Let's go back inside, Lily," he said gently, leading her back towards the hospital. "We'll figure this out together." With every step, Dr. Hartman's mind raced. He had to act quickly. Time was not on their side, and he knew he needed a plan to bring Sam back and ensure that Lily was safe. As they re-entered the hospital, he steeled himself for the fight ahead, determined to protect the fragile bond between the siblings and secure a brighter future for them both.